For our model today, we're going to do a 1940 style skin or bald taper. We're going to do a 2 to 3 finger high bald or skin taper, and we're going to blend it in a very small area right here into the top. The top we're only going to take a little bit off. If you can see, this model has very straight hair and it's going to stand up or stick straight out if we cut it too short. So we want to leave it long enough so that it lays down. So if you can think of that time period, the 1940s, the World War II era, the soldiers always wore hats as part of their uniform, but they wanted to look like they had their hair shaved. But they also wanted to make sure they had hair on top for when they were going out on the weekends or doing whatever they were allowed to do on leave. So we have a few challenges with this particular haircut. That's why I chose this model. We have a high hairline around the ears, which works out perfect for a bald or skin taper. So that takes this part of it out of the haircut. If he was to wear his hair longer, what would happen is you can't outline it too high around the ears because you're going to see that white wall, which we don't want. But since we're going to cut it that close, you're not going to see it. If you look really closely right here, you see that hair wants to jump out. So very carefully we have to blend that in. So when you look at the model straight on, it looks like all the hair is going back and it looks aerodynamic, so to speak, even though the hair is sticking straight out. So we have a very small transition area where the hair is going to comb back and it's going to be faded real tight. So now as I spin him around, you can see where the hair wants to stick out. Here's his pivot. His hair grows in a complete circle around his head, so we have to manage that pivot. So this area right here, this circle, for most people, and especially on this model, this is the area where have to be very careful. The worst thing that can happen is you have a customer or a client walking out of your barbershop or hair salon with this piece of hair sticking up. And the sign of a good haircut is if we can cut his hair and even when it's dry it's laying down without putting a lot of product in and it's still laying down, that means that we've mastered this part of the haircut. Even though we're going to use product, we still don't want to rely on the product to hold the hair down. And on this side, as you can see, the hair grows straight forward. So this is a little challenging too because we want to have a part. So when we have a part, we have to leave this hair a little bit longer. So the shorter this hair gets, the more the hair goes in the growth pattern. The longer we leave the hair and the more weight the hair has, the more it's going to lay down. So that's very important that we don't cut this side too short. This is not going to be a disconnected haircut where we shave up to the part and we blend the other side. The fade is going to be the same height all the way around. And then the other thing I always like to check is the front hairline. So before I start cutting, I want to lift up that front hairline and I want to see where the deepest parts of the recession are. Everybody's hairline is different. So where the deepest part of the recessions are, I want to over direct the hair back to that recession before I start cutting. If I don't do that and I cut right here, what's going to happen is the front's going to be too short, it's not going to comb to the side, and I'm going to leave 2 holes right on each side where the recession is. So we'll do that first, and then that's going to leave the front heavy, and then I'll show you after we do the whole top section how we go and we deal with the recession there and cut the front without leaving a hole in each corner. Because we want to make sure we leave this hair long enough so when we part it to the side and brush it to the side and back, it stays back nicely. So I'm going to comb the hair straight back to the recession. It's been about 4 weeks since the last haircut, so I know to take somewhere about 1 inch off. And I'm going to make 2 to 3 cuts, and I'm not going to cut past my center knuckle. I never let go of the hair. I like to use a traveling guide. I'm balancing with my pinky on the head, so tension is very important when you're cutting the hair. So I'm going to regrip the hair, and I can see my guide underneath. And I'm going to take very small sections. This is called a traveling guide versus a stationary guide where you would let the hair go and then re-pick it up. I always like to use a traveling guide because that way my guide is always in my fingers. So I'm going to pull it back to the recession or the deepest point of the hairline. And we're going to take very small sections. Now we have 2 guides. I have my traveling guide and I have my center guide. And I want to make sure I don't cut past my center knuckle. So what I try to do, as you can see, I'm lining up my guide with my center knuckle so I don't cut past that. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to go looking for hair to cut and round that corner. This is a square shaped haircut, so we need that weight in the corners for the hair to stay back when we style it. So as I get towards the back, so basically I'm lined up a little bit behind the ear, and that's where I want to stop. And I'm going to take a section from the back just above the crown. I'm going to pull it forward so my traveling guide becomes a stationary guide. And then that leaves the hair longer towards the back. So now we're going to come through, and I like to, when you angle the comb in, now this is very important. If you angle the comb out, you're going to push hair and create weight lines. If you angle the comb in, it lifts the hair up real easily, and you can see your guide. And this is our guide right here, and we're just going to blend to that guide, and we're going to work our way around the head. And as I said in the beginning of the haircut, it's much more difficult to cut a little bit of hair than it is a lot of hair. So we just want to cut a little bit of hair. So what we're actually doing is I'm keeping the base of the comb, the base of the scissor on the comb, and I'm forming a V with the scissor in the comb instead of laying it flat. So if I laid it flat, what happens is I'm in danger of cutting all that hair up there. But when I form the V, all I'm doing is cutting that little bit of hair on the base of the comb. And I always like to see my previous guide when I'm cutting, so I can always see my previous guide in the comb. So now we're working our way around to the other side here, where the hair grows straight forward. You can see it's heavy there. Now on the part side, there's a tendency that the part side to always stick out to the side like this. One of the big reasons for that is opposite the part side, you have all the hair laying to the side and all that weight weighing it down. Here, we just have a little bit of hair from the part to here to let that hair lay down. So we can't cut that too short. It's going to make it stick straight out. So part sides are always tricky.
Are you a member of HowToCutHair.tv? Learn the art of men's barbering from third-generation master barber Greg Zorian in full HD, 24/7 from anywhere in the world. Sign up for your free membership and learn how to increase your efficiency and make more money behind the chair. HowToCutHair.tv.
Now in this case, again, I'm going to say it again, the hair is very straight, and the other thing too is the color is very light. So when you're dealing with light color hair and straight hair, just one of those alone makes clipper cutting very difficult, but the two of them together makes it very difficult to blend it out. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that when I start the fade, this is where my guide is, and I want to fade to my guide, but I don't want to cut into my guide. So I'm going to take, I want to get this picture in my mind, and if you have to do this in a haircut to get that picture in your mind with the comb, that's fine. Just put the comb right on there. It looks like you're measuring it out, and you want to take that angle straight up in the air, just like that. That's your fading motion. So with the longer blades, if you can see, my wrist is still. It does not move at all. The motion comes from my elbow and my shoulder. I don't do any of this. Anytime you do any wrist motion up in here, you're going to wind up with a line in the haircut that you're going to have to blend out. I don't want to do any blending. So this is our fading motion. So I'm going to turn the clipper on. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to take an imaginary line straight up in the air. Okay, and the slower you cut with the clipper, the faster that you're going to be done, because you're going to have less blending to do. So basically what's happening is the head is round, and as his head rounds in, I go straight up in the air. And at the very end right here, I'll show you a little trick with one of our blades. We're going to make one stroke right across there, and it takes that right off. So I'm going to go all the way around with my largest blade. and then we're going to work down to the shorter blades. So I like to stand in one spot and just turn the chair, because the other thing that this does is it allows me to look into the mirror, because the mirror is one of your most important tools, especially when you're fading, because your eyes may see one thing, but the mirror is going to tell you the whole story. We have to have some distance in between blades. That's what creates the fading effect. If we keep going up the same height both times, we're going to wind up with a line. And the other thing I see a lot of people doing is when they get to the fade area, they speed up. Actually, what you want to do is slow down. You want to see that hair as you're cutting it. So keep in mind, we have longer hair on top, we're going really short on the side, and our transition area here is real small. So we're doing a fade within a 1 to 2 finger width right here. So when that happens, you're not going to see an elongated fade. So we're going to see a little bit of a shadow, but we just don't want to see a line. Now we have our 1/8 of an inch blade on our clipper. We're going to keep working our fade. We're going to stay below where we left off. But now we're going to do two things. So with clipper over comb, if you leave the heel of the blade on the comb this way, you're going to take a lot of length. If you pull the heel of the blade away from the comb slightly, you're going to cut and blend. If you tip the clipper all the way up and just use the tip of the teeth, you're going to just blend. It's like point cutting with 18 shears, because there's 18 blades here. So that's what's going to give us a nice blend. So right there, if we see any heavy spot, I'm going to stick my comb in right there. I'm going to tilt the clipper out and run it straight across. And I call this the eraser blade. Then we're perfectly blended. So that's all the blending I want to do. I don't want to waste any time with blending. So if you do everything correctly with all your other blades, start from the top and work your way down, you're going to cut your haircut time almost in half by cutting the blending step out of the haircuts. Now the other thing I'm always doing as I'm spinning the chair, I'm always looking in my mirror and making sure that the hair is fading out correctly. So what I'm doing here is I'm pulling the blade away. This technique is called floating the blade. I'm floating the blade away from the head. I'm slowing the motion down. So that's fading as I'm pulling away from the head. The reason why I love adjustable blade clippers is because of the blade, we can easily adjust the length of the clipper. So for that 1 to 2 finger width around the edges, it makes it very easy. We don't have to snap blades on and off. And I also switched to a finishing comb because we're working with a smaller area, so I don't want a big comb to use around the ears. So I'm going to start with the clipper in the open position. Then I'm going to use it halfway closed and all the way closed in this 2 finger width. And that's going to get us right down to the skin length just around the edges. So we're going to start out and I'm going to use my scooping motion. I'm going to make 2 or 3 passes. Then I'm going to close the clipper halfway. Same thing, 2 or 3 passes. Then I'm going to close it all the way. Same thing, each time just dropping a little bit down. So now we have an elongated taper. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the side. And it's not going to cut a lot because the other blade that we used was very short, was a 1/16 of an inch, so this is the next size down. Now I'm going to close it halfway. Now I'm going to close it all the way. So what I want to do is I want to make sure his chin is parallel to the floor, that way, and the blade of the trimmer is parallel to the floor, so I get an even line on the sideburns. Now in front of the ear, we're just going to clean up a little bit in front. I'm not going to do anything behind because he has a high hairline around his ear, and I don't want to make a big arcing line around his ear. We just want to leave it natural. We're going to bend his head to the side, and we're going to make a diagonal line. And we're not going to see it really dark because his hair is so short. I'm going to turn the clipper blade around to avoid razor burn and shave into the hairline. If I turn it around, drag down, and pull this way, the cutting teeth are too close to the skin and we're going to wind up with razor burn. Now on the back, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the t-shirt line and we're going to shave up, and we're going to stop with just a little bit of a flicking motion about an inch below his hairline.
Introducing Zorian of New York, premium grooming products for the modern man, designed by third-generation master barber Greg Zorian. Made in the USA and not tested on animals, each of our styling products is infused with natural ingredients and features light, clean fragrances. Our 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner is sulfate and paraben-free and color-safe. Do you own a barbershop or salon, rent a chair, or run a school? Find out how we support our retailers with world-class barbering education and product knowledge training. We're currently accepting applications for wholesale accounts and invite you to apply on our website, Zorian of New York.
For the style portion of this haircut, what we want to use, we're going to use a thick grooming cream. What this is going to do is it's going to give his hair a medium shine, it's going to give it a little texture, and it's going to give it a good amount of hold so it'll last all day, but it's not going to look like a heavy pomade or gel. So what we're going to use is our Zorian of New York grooming cream, which is a very thick cream, and we want to use a good amount. And before you put it in the hair, you want to make sure that we emulsify it in our hands really well. Just like that, so it'll spread through the hair. So we want to start out by pushing it down on the top. And then we want to come underneath and get it all the way through into the roots of the hair, all the way through. And push it back. And then I'm going to grab a vent brush. Well, I'm going to wipe my hands off first. Get the excess product off your hands. And then we're going to grab a vent brush. So I'm going to comb the hair all straight forward first. Again, this way it's going to get the product all the way through the hair. So that's first. We want to brush it all the way in the direction that it grows. Okay, now on this side, I'm going to brush all that forward. Okay, now where his part is, now we want to start with the parting. Now we're going to brush it to the side. And then we're going to pull that down in front. And just take the first few teeth to make sure we get that part nice and even. Okay, now we're going to spin him back around. Now as I'm doing this the whole time, I'm always checking the mirror. And then the last step is from the front. We want to come from the front and then we want to brush it back. And then with very straight hair, what I like to do at the very end is I like to give it just a little bit of lift in the front, because during the day it's going to fall down just a little bit. So that way it just doesn't look too flat on his head brushed across. Okay, so there we have it. We're going to show you all the way around how it should look. So again, we used our Zorian of New York, a grooming cream. It's a heavy cream, and it's going to give the hair a medium shine and a medium hold. That's a 1940 style bald or skin taper.